It's funny when suddenly the light changes, unexpectedly. By the look of things, I predicted overcast all day. But no, I was mistaken. Turns out I wasn't mistaken. It's still overcast. I thought I had a good metaphor going, but that's out the door. It would have been really cliché anyway, darkness to light. But looking out now, I see darkness to dim. Useful for a story. George was a poor kid chasing me down the block, while hauling a plank over his head with a nail sticking out, which George intended to drive through the top of my skull. Growing up was a strange mix. JFK was assassinated, and I was too young to understand the gravity of the situation. I strolled the block to a circle of familiars hosted by Jane, who was crying and explaining things. Even she was too young to know what she was talking about, although much older than the rest of us. She was also George's older sister, and the only person in a family of ghouls, like that pretty blonde in the Munsters. George was a foster child and not responsible for the machinations of his crazy family. My brothers and I managed to rescue a newborn pup from them, their sweet dog Angel's newest accomplishment, and in George's family eyes, ripe for the pound. My dad named our new puppy Winston, due to the white ring around her collar, as advertised by the cigarette brand. Everyone smoked like chimneys back then, including me by the time I was 13. When I was reported smoking on the street, my mom said, "Okay, but only do it in the house." I actually agree with this type of upbringing. Being raised this way offered nothing to rebel against, and I still considered myself tough as needed for going about. Years after chasing me with the masonry nail sticking out of the board, George raised his hand in 7th grade, a studious boy ready to answer Mrs. Zale's question on American presidents. In light of our checkered past, I was so impressed by George, now a serious student of the 7th grade, who had not only turned a corner, but was proficient in what happened to be my worst subject. George had somehow evolved from wielding big sticks with intention to inflict bodily harm into a smart young historian. He'd also managed to overcome the public humiliations inflicted upon him by his foster mother, which included making him drop his pants for beatings in their living room, no matter who happened to be visiting. Who knows how she got away with this, and I have no idea where George ended up, or if his was a case of dark to dim or dark to light. My childhood friends and I sought to commune with all small lion-hearted creatures of the cemetery. I also happened to release my pet box turtle there, found by my dad years before while on a road trip. I lowered my pet carefully to the edge of the pond, scooting it out onto the water dancing with light, sensing the illumination as approval from the pond spirits. I felt sad but determined to give my friend freedom after its years of loyalty and living on ground beef on my back porch. But in the water, the turtle made it clear, by yanking its head and limbs tight into its shell and drifting far away like a tiny shipwreck lost at sea, that it couldn't swim. Once ashore, after wading deep into the water to haul it out, I said goodbye to my old friend as it marched away, buried in the tall grass with its stately head and neck bravely distended. Susan Cisneros' mother was very young but looked old. She was aware of this and said it out loud, while smoking cigarettes to the butt, end to end, each time lifting the tin cap of her lighter and flicking the tiny disc until it sparked a flame, followed by a prolonged inhale, audible exhale, and the gust and smell of smoke. Susan and I scooted plastic farm animals on the floor beneath her feet. We'd built up our collection, which finally included Trailer, the horse in a harness whom I proudly named. As we shepherded our flocks and herds across the linoleum, Susan's mother recanted the story of how Susan's father had left her, all alone with a baby, and now she was still alone raising this small child who needed glasses, my best friend Susan. With courtesy, but oblivious to a story we'd heard before, Susan and I strategized where on the floor to move the goat and the hen as discerningly as chess players. Mothers were so often lonely back then. Although most had jobs, it was a time when keeping up appearances was mandatory and personal failings an embarrassment. They had only their children to talk to, and we grew up as therapists. Through her heavy black mascara and ghostly pale taut face, I could see Susan's mother still had looks. Sporting a tall platinum beehive and short shorts, bare feet on the seat of her chair and knees pressed against a floral rumpled blouse, the pretty young mother, still in her 20s, smoked her cigarettes end to end and taught us about life. Another thing kids did for fun was at night, capturing fireflies we called lightning bugs, which alighted the dark in random flashes. Honestly, I can't remember if we released them, but hopefully we did.